What's up, everybody? Kirsten here, and welcome to this episode of The Big Green Couch. For those of you that don't know, The Big Green Couch is a series brought to you by Pound where we bring in noisemakers from many different industries. We chat with them, we pick their brains, we get inspired, we make new friends. Speaking of new friends, I have one of my very good friends with me today, Kellie Wagner. Kellie is a longtime friend of mine. She is an ultimate badass. She's also the founder of a company called Collective, which is a consultancy that focuses on strategic diversity, equity, and the inclusion of all companies. And Kellie, I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome to the Big Green Couch.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So, Kellie, I love you, and I love what you're doing. I love that you have come to this place in your life. I love the work that you are doing. I think we live in a world that is constantly pushing us to conform, to look like others, be like others, talk like others. So the fact that you stand behind this mission to empower difference is pretty freaking awesome, and I absolutely love it. So tell us a little bit about your journey to this place. What inspired you? What happened along your life to get you to where you are and to ultimately create a company?
Yeah. Like this? Man, it's been kind of a windy journey. And I'm definitely a testament to like not knowing what I wanted to do and really kind of getting there through just my experiences in life. But yeah, I think, so I started Collective almost 2 years ago, and before that I was working in tech. And so tech is notoriously not very diverse. But I think even further back, I am biracial. My mom's black, my dad's white, and I think growing up I always kind of was like thrown into these situations where I felt different, and that has really fueled my interest in one, building connection across difference, but two, just celebrating that kind of difference in people, because it's an amazing thing that we don't need to like cover up. We actually should just be amplifying. And so I was really interested from a pretty early age in telling people stories and raising up voices that weren't traditionally heard, because I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me, and I didn't hear a lot of people's stories that were like mine. And so I became really passionate about that and thought that I wanted to be a journalist and tell those stories. But while I was in grad school, I started working in tech on the side, and I realized that it wasn't enough to just tell those stories, that I also wanted to make sure that there was space and that they were treated fairly as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
Incredible. So I feel like no matter if you're starting a business or a project, I feel like for some people it's like a ton of little things that led up to this moment that kind of like push you over time, and for others it's this huge fireworks of like, I have to do this. What was the moment where you realized that this company wasn't just something that you wanted to do, but something you needed to do, right? And to bring to the world?
Yeah. I love that idea of like needing to do it, because it definitely was like a situation where I had a problem and I was like, I have to solve this. Nobody else is going to if I don't. So I was a notorious job hopper. I moved to New York 7 years ago, and I
didn't know there was a technical name for that. But
oh yes,
I think I have that. Yes. Or had that.
Totally. And I like worked in so many different kinds of companies. When I got to New York, I was in a finance, real estate company. I then worked in a couple different tech companies, and I kept leaving because I didn't feel like it was the right environment for me. Something felt off. Like I didn't feel like I belonged. In so many of the positions that I was in, I was the only woman on my team. In a ton of situations, I was the only woman of color. And I think the turning point for me was that just like everything that was going on in the world, I started to really connect to a lot of like really crappy things, particularly that were happening to people of color. And I remember I was sitting in my office one day, and I had a great supportive team, but it was like a team of about 300, and there were 2 women of color in the entire company. Wow. And I remember coming in and seeing something on the news, and just being like really torn up about it, and coming in and everyone just seemed so happy and no one was talking about it. And I just felt really alone. Like I was like, wow, no one cares. And then like amazingly enough, someone kind of noticed that I was like down and asked me, and I was like, yeah, I'm like really bummed about some stuff that's just happening in the world right now. And they were so supportive and were like, oh my gosh, we have this channel where we talk about these things on Slack, which is like a chat platform for work. And I went in and everyone was talking about it. And I was like, oh my God, I don't have to feel alone. And for me, I just really tapped into and felt so strongly that like there were other people who were having that same experience. And if we could build systems within companies where people could have that support and not have to feel alone, that I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to solve that problem not just for me, but for other people too.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I feel like there's this constant theme in what we talk about together, what we talk about at Pound, where in everybody's life where you feel so alone, and just like one connection with somebody or one conversation really opens up this world where you realize so many people are dealing with the same things.
Yes.
Which brings me to my next question, which is very much about that, this feeling that so many people experience in their lives, which is plain and simply feeling intimidated by a group of people, right?
Yeah.
So that could be like when you go to your first class in kindergarten, to a job, your career, a group fitness class. I know personally going to the gym was a really intimidating experience for me. It still is to this day.
Same.
It's hard to go to, and walk in a room full of a group of strangers who you don't know. It's intimidating. So my question is, whether you're a leader or just part of a community or a group fitness instructor, what can we do as leaders to create inclusive environments before people step in the room, right? Because it's usually all the stuff that happens before that keeps people from getting there in the first place. So how do we create that vibe and that environment before people even get there? Yeah,
that's a great question. I feel like I just want to say this first, which is that in my line of work, when people hear diversity, like they have a very specific idea in mind of what that looks like. And I always try to bring people back to this idea that diversity really means difference. And it's really tapping into that feeling of feeling different. And that's something that everyone, but everyone can relate to that. Like, I don't know a single person who didn't make it through middle school, like, right? And feel awkward and like they intimidated by a group of people. And so I think that's the first thing, right? Is like tapping into that in yourself as an instructor, as someone who wants to create an inclusive environment, is to remember what that feels like. And then let yourself be vulnerable. Because I think as soon as someone shares that they've experienced that too, people just feel way more comfortable being like, whoa, okay, I'm not the only one. And so it is, I talk a lot about this. I am super open about, what scares me, what makes me nervous, when I'm feeling intimidated or like I'm an imposter and I don't belong here. And what I found is that it opens people up and it makes them feel like it's okay to also feel that way, and that it shouldn't be a blocker for you engaging. So I think that's one piece. And then the other thing I would say is being curious and like being really open and surrounding yourself with other people so that you can just be more aware. I was having a conversation with one of my teammates about this, actually, about specifically in fitness. And I've seen this come up a lot, right? Is like, when you're thinking about, do I belong? When you're thinking about going into a class, like, you look at the website, or you look at the branding, or you might peek your head in the window and see like who's in the class, and if you don't see someone that looks like you, it can be really intimidating, and it's easy to be like, oh, this isn't for me. And so, sometimes you can't change that overnight, right? Like, the demographics just aren't there. But I think one thing that leaders can do is really call out and explicitly say, like, we want everyone, There's not one right type of person to be in this class. We're so excited to have different people.
I love that. So it's being authentic and vulnerable, so that other people, you break barriers by doing that.
Totally.
And I also love, just, if you don't see yourself, how are you going to feel welcome in the first place? So finding ways to make sure that everybody feels welcome, if it's language, if it's visuals. We talk about that a lot. I love that. Which kind of brings me to my next question or thought. What do we do then when we're in an environment with people, right? So you're in a classroom, you're at work. We talk a lot about how not only body language, but verbal language plays such a huge role in making people feel included and inspiring diversity. We talk so much at Pound about how being different is our power. It's like your superpower. What is your advice for people when you're actually in that environment when it comes to language that can really help nurture and foster diversity and inclusion?
I think being really thoughtful and aware. I feel like, especially in fitness, like, and I'm guilty of it, I'm sure there are instructors that are guilty of it, like, we're hardest on ourselves. And so it's so easy to kind of just like let language slip about like, oh, I ate this last night, or, I'm, really trying to drop a couple of pounds. And I think things like that really set a tone that trickles down to other people. And, someone said to me recently, like, if they're talking about themselves that way, what must they be thinking about me? And it's like, of course, like, that's going to make someone feel like they don't fit in, and they don't belong. So I think it's really being thoughtful about language and celebrating things that go beyond kind of the surface level. I also think that it's modeling behavior in the sense of like inviting people in. I think a lot of times there's this sense that, well, as long as I'm not being exclusive and I'm not, purposely excluding people, that's enough. But sometimes you have to like go out of your way to reach out to someone and make that connection. And it's super easy when we know it's totally understandable when we're more comfortable with someone, when we know someone, we're going to reach out to them more. And that's why we tend to stay with people who are like us. But I would say challenge yourself. And when you see somebody who's different, to like actually go and introduce yourself, reach out to them. If someone's new, go out of your way to make them feel welcome, is huge.
I love that. I want to ask you a question about compliments, because I think as anybody, humans, we always think compliments are a good thing, right? But one thing that I've been highly aware of lately is, if you're complimenting somebody every day that they're beautiful, like, that feels good to say, wow, you look beautiful today. But if we're saying that to them over and over and we're not saying anything else? And I think no matter who you are, being thoughtful of your compliments is like the next level of working on inclusion and being really thoughtful in general. How do we because compliments are good.
Compliments are great, but it's so, I think there's two things there. One, especially with girls and women, like, I hear the question all the time from like moms, how do I make sure that I'm, setting a good example for my daughters? And it's like, well, if you're just complimenting her on her looks, then that's what she's going to think is valuable about her. So try to think about things that make the person special beyond just, again, surface, like physical things. The other thing I would say, and this has been huge for me, is there's this idea of growth mindset where, you know, we're used to giving compliments that are like, you're pretty, or you're smart.
Yeah.
And that's
I
a
like
very
your
like,
shoes.
you either are or aren't, right? You either are smart or you aren't smart. And I think one of the best things that we can do from a compliment shifting perspective is talking about like the progress and the work that someone's putting in. So instead of being like, wow, you look great, you like lost 5 pounds, it's like, wow, you like have been working so hard and I've really seen you improve so much. And like I see the effort. That type of stuff, that's something someone can change, right? Like they have control over how much effort they put in, how much dedication they have to something. But when you're saying like you're pretty or you're smart, like you're saying you don't have control over that. That's just something that you are.
It's interesting. I think diversity is a word that is being used a lot more often, which is incredible. You obviously have a job that consumes itself with creating diversity and inspiring diversity and inclusivity. But I think there's still a bit of, you know, sometimes it can make people uncomfortable, the word. So when it makes people uncomfortable, they don't talk about it at all. What is your advice for anybody in bringing it into the conversation more and just becoming more comfortable with it? Because, you know, I was watching some funny movie lately. I can't remember what it was, but there was like some kid was like, do black people get sunburns? And I just thought it was awesome because I'm like, you know, these are things that go through people's heads that we're so afraid of asking, and that's a stupid example of it.
No,
but how do you make people, how do we become more comfortable with these conversations and break barriers?
Right. First of all, I love that, right? I've always been super candid, and yes, I get it. There's a time and a place. Like, if a stranger walks up to me and is like, what's it like to be black? Like, that would be really off-putting. Tell us. But I think, you know, it's kind of what I bring into my practice in the work that we do, and the way that I interact with our clients is like, it's a no judgment zone, right? I think it's about curiosity, like reframing the conversation around like, I'm trying to learn. And not everyone's gonna be in a place to teach you at that moment, and that's okay. But I think if you know, coming from a place of genuinely like, I just wanna understand, I wanna learn, I think creates a greater sense of openness. But the other piece is like, we work really hard to not be uncomfortable as humans. In our society, we're like, no, I do not want to feel uncomfortable. And I think that's a really big thing that we need to get over if we're going to have these conversations is, oh, it's going to be uncomfortable. And like, you might say something and the person might get a little bit upset, or you say something wrong, and that's okay. Like, I think that when I talk to people who are really scared to talk about diversity, or interact with people that are different from them, the number one thing that I hear is, I'm worried I'm gonna mess it up. I'm worried I'm gonna say something wrong. I'm gonna look stupid. And I think that there's kind of like a two-way thing here, right? Which is, on the one hand, we have to just not be afraid to like get it wrong, because we're gonna get it wrong. And on the other side, we have to, on the receiving end, we have to be willing to understand that people aren't perfect, that they're gonna get it wrong, and it's probably not coming from a malicious place, and having a little bit of empathy to say like, I don't know everything about everything either. So like, I'm not gonna judge you for not knowing everything. And then just get messy and play and like ask questions. And I love asking. And I mean, I love when people ask me questions.
That's perfect. That was a perfect answer. I think we just have to, I mean, listen, growth doesn't happen unless we're uncomfortable. And I think we have a lot of evolving to do in this world. So get uncomfortable, ask questions in the right spaces. I love that answer. Absolutely. So my last question is, you know, you're in you're a huge part of an emerging industry that, quite frankly, didn't exist 10 to 20 years ago. You're a big part in evolving that industry, which is incredible. What advice would you give to people who see and feel things that are missing in the world, feel passionately about it, whether it's an industry that's not there or a project that's not being done? What advice would you give to our community for people? How do people start? How do you begin making a difference or making an industry that wasn't there before?
I think the simplest thing I can say is don't wait for someone else to solve the problem that you want to see solved. It's so easy to sit back and be like, who am I to solve that problem? Like, I don't, when I got into this, I didn't have a background in human resources. I didn't have, a fancy degree in this. I had a lot of intuition because I knew what it was like to be on the receiving end of that problem, and I knew what I intuitively felt like would help. And yes, I then backed it up with like doing a ton of research and talking to people who are way smarter than me and aligning myself with people who like get it and have been there and done that and learning from them. But I had to kind of put aside this notion of like, I'm not good enough or I'm not equipped to solve that problem. Yeah, like I had to put the fear aside and be like, if I want this problem solved, I am the best person to solve it, and just take a leap or a baby step, but just move in a direction. Absolutely.
That's huge. And I think you said it earlier that, what sparked it, that aha moment, that moment was, a lot of the times when I jump forward, something made me angry or made me feel passionate, and you felt like there was, whether it's like wrong in the world or something's not being done the correct way or it can be done better. If your gut is telling you that you need to make a difference in that area, jump. And I love that you came from a place that was like, I am the person to do this. That's huge. It takes a lot of courage. So thank you for that and what you do. I have some fun questions now.
Okay.
Rapid fire questions. But before I finish, I just want to say thank you. I think what you do is incredible, and it's making the world a better place. So follow Kellie and her company, Collective, Kellie Wagner. We'll put it all down at the bottom. She's amazing. Become friends with her. All right, rapid fire questions. Ready to go. Book you're reading right now?
Ooh, what book am I reading right now? I'm reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. I don't have a lot of time for pleasure reading these days, but I try to like read a chapter like every morning. And slowly but surely I will get through the book, but it's so good.
A chapter every morning? I get through like 3 pages and I fall asleep.
That's why I have to do it in the morning. I started reading at night. That's and smart. I was like out.
Yeah, that's smart. You're gonna hate this question, but New York or LA?
So hard. That's so hard. I'm like, currently, it's really cold in New York these days. I'm really enjoying LA. I have a soft spot for my Brooklyn bodega guys. So it's 50-50 split.
Ooh, it's New York. I know it in her heart. Stay in or go out?
I'm a stay in type of girl, and even better if I can bring people to me.
Yes.
I will cook. I'll put on a movie for us, but yes. I'm a little bit of a homebody.
Samesies. If you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh. Oh man. These questions are hard. Say what comes to mind.
It's me, guys. She wants to.
with Kirsten. Maybe my mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. Favorite current song?
I've been listening to this like girl called King Princess. So good. I've been listening to the song 1950 or something.
Look it up, guys.
Go look it up. It's amazing.
New jam.
It's the jam.
Salty or sweet?
Oh, sweet. I have such a sweet tooth.
I knew that. I knew the
yeah.
answer to that.
Yeah.
I cheated. Favorite word?
Favorite word?
Yeah.
Ooh. Conundrum.
Ooh.
I love that word.
Good.
Such a conundrum.
Least favorite word? Wasn't a question, but I want to know.
Ooh, moist.
Why?
It's awful.
This is disgusting. Sorry. I'm going to do something different. Because today is Kellie's birthday, and we're currently the same age for the next month.
Yes.
I'm going to dedicate this lovely quote that I actually read last night by Kellie Wagner.
I love Kellie Wagner.
So this is dedicated to every human being who looks different, feels different, and thinks differently. I see you. I feel you. I am you. Stay different. Our world needs the difference that we will all make, and the difference that you make.
I'm like tearing up. She's so good.
Yeah,
That's a
she's
great
incredible.
quote.
I love it.
Love it.
I love being different. You should love being different. We're all different.
I love being different.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Big Green Couch. Make sure you follow Kellie. If you have any questions for Kellie or us, leave it in the comment section below. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.